Hi, welcome to Cat Unmuted. I was supposed to have a guest for today, but I haven't found my next guest yet. So hopefully that'll be next week. And that's the reason, well, one of the reasons why I'm late for this one is this episode was supposed to be posted this morning, but I had a long weekend because I was helping a friend with a market at the Lavender Festival, which went really well. But anyway, we'll get to my topic. So today I'm talking about letting go of relationships that no longer serve you, and the countless situations that I have been in. But I do have some examples that I have to share, but the main purpose for this episode is the basically the importance of letting a relationship go, not because of the other person. Like, this has everything about you. It's everything about basically self-respect for yourself, self-love, you know, like, you're the most important thing in this life, and you need to take care of you. And that's what we're talking about today. So have you ever stayed in a relationship long after your heart knew that it was no longer working? There are different kinds of relationships here. It can be family, it can be friends, it can be lovers. I think the family one is the most complicated one because you are connected bloodline wise, you know what I mean? But you can, they can still be toxic to the point where it would be at your best interest to cut them out of your life, you know? So even though I'm saying it's cutting them out of your life, it's not about cutting them out of your life. It's all about your self-respect and how you handle it. It'll show as cutting them off, but the important lesson here is you, not them. It's about basically choosing peace within yourself instead of trying to rationalize it, save it, clinging on to the hope that of what this relationship or that relationship was supposed to represent, was supposed to be, what it was supposed to look like, and what it was supposed to make you feel. If that makes sense at all. So there are a variety of reasons why we would hang on to this whatever relationship we're talking about here. So I'm going to obviously talk about my relationships as an example, but some of these people that I had to let go of in the past, we have a lot of history, there's a lot of loyalty, there may be some guilt involved, and that most importantly, hope that they will change later to the person that you thought they were supposed to be, and in turn have that relationship that you hoped for. And it can look like, sorry, I have to adjust that pillow on my back. I'm like recording outside for the first time because, well, we have the house on the market, and I feel like we've been here long enough for me to be moving away from here like at some point sometime soon, and I want to get used to recording anywhere. Even though this is my home, it is still outside as opposed to in my office. So anyway, back to the point. So I have three examples in mind. There's my stepmother, there's my ex-husband, and a handful of friends that I'm not going to name. But um, obviously, I don't have to say, needless to say, are no longer friends. Um, Adjusting again, hold on. Okay. These chairs are exactly the most comfortable on the back. Anyway, um, since my stepmother was the first one, she would be a good example of history and loyalty, right? Because she started out great. Like, we got along and we did a lot of stuff together before my dad married her. And so, and then it was after they got married when she, in a sense, changed. I'm sure that was in her the whole time, but that was when things flipped after they got married. And so up to that point, like, there might be the loyalty and the history already built, but there's also the history and loyalty my dad had for her because they had been dating a lot longer than I've known her. So, and I'm pretty sure they were dating before my parents were even divorced. So, that shows how long that relationship was for my dad. And but even for me personally, we had almost an entire year of a well, no, it wasn't a year. It's probably more like 6 months, but like 6 months is already a good amount of time for us to build that relationship because we were living together. So that was a lot of hours, under the same roof and all the decisions we had to make for us to be part of the family there. But I think most importantly, the loyalty that goes along with the fact that she was our stepmother, right? Um, and then eventually, because I think I lived with them for 6 years before I ran away from home. But the 6 years creates a lot of time of knowing who she was supposed to be. And so unknowingly, I had that hope that we would one day have that relationship we were meant to have, or in my head, supposed to have. So, well, I already used my stepmother as an example, but um, one thing I did mention is that I, back in the day, after I become a full adult and I'm living in the United States and I joined the military, and in one of the counseling sessions I had where I I told my counselor that didn't I decided to keep her in my life, not necessarily keeping her as like a full on like active member of my family, but more in the sense of staying connected because even though she was horrible to me, I didn't feel like I knew she had nobody. And I thought I was, in a sense, keeping the peace by saying that I would be that person if she needs somebody. I never gave her my address. I never, like, the only thing she had of mine to know how to contact me was my email address. And we were friends on social media. And that was my excuse to keep her around. But, yeah, it didn't matter how horrible she was while I was growing up. But as time went by and I got older, so this little story I just told you happened, that me seeing a counselor during the military, that was in my, like, give or take 30s. So I was in the military. I joined the military at 27, and I separated at the age of 33. Yeah, 33. So during those years, I had the counseling, and that's what I told them. But in my 40s, in my early 40s, I'm 45 right now. In my early 40s, so this is super recent, I realized through talking to my transformational coach, I call her my decluttering coach, but through talking to her, I learned that I held on to that relationship for hope, for the hope of her um, becoming the stepmother or the mother that she was supposed to be, how I was supposed to be treated if she were a true mother. Like held on to that hope that one day she will change that kind of person, and I wanted to be there for it. Hope. So it can be bad and it can be good, and in this case that was not good. Because literally that is false hope, and that was all that it was, that hope. I also grieved for the mother that I thought she would be. So in order to when I held on to that hope, right? But when I realized that that was the reason I was holding on to her, I had to go through a grieving process, knowing that that was false hope, that I needed to let go of. I needed to grieve the person I felt like she should have been. I needed to grieve the hope that I had that she would become that person. I had to grieve the relationship that was supposed to be. I had to let go by grieving this relationship I thought was supposed to be. But it was also the grief of um what is it? It's the grief of, got so many things, right? The relationship we did have, which was at the beginning, that 6 months before they got married, and she completely changed and became mentally and emotionally abusive. So I'm grieving that person that I did see. I'm grieving for the person that I hoped she would be after she became abusive. And I'm grieving the hope that she would change. I'm grieving a lot of timelines here. The mother I knew she was, because she did show it for that 6 months. The mother that she was supposed to be, which she dropped while we were being abused. And then after moving away and hoping that she would change, the hope that she would change. I had to grieve all three of those hopes, or all three of those realities. The reality I lived, the reality that I hoped she would be, and the reality of the hope that she would change. I had to grieve all of that. Obviously, the maybe she will change is the biggest, because that's the one that I lived longest. The reason I held her in my life for this long, this false hope that she will change. And in all honesty, the only reason she was in my life is because she held on to me, but only contacted me when she needed me. But when I contacted her, there was nothing. Like, literally, I was there for her. And I let that happen by keeping that connection and having that false hope, because that was the reason for the connection, right? Anyway, so that's my first example, is my stepmother. The second example is my ex-husband. We were married for 2 years and 9 months. Not that anybody was counting, I was. It was my first marriage, you know? When I first met him, he was funny. He made me laugh. And I felt like that was like the most important thing was that we got along, and he made me laugh, and I was able to be spontaneous, and he did the things. Like, we went skinny dipping. Like, how much more, you know, spontaneous can you get? And I loved that. So we dated for a while. And when we got engaged, we were literally engaged for, you know what? I can't remember. It was not long. It was maybe a month and a half at the longest. We were supposed to get married 6 or 7 months down the road after, but we made a very quick decision. We're getting married now before he deployed, instead of waiting for his return from the deployment, which I should have done. Not that I knew that. You know what I mean? Whatever. So, he was jealous, a very jealous guy, and therefore very possessive. But he also had this image in his head, which I didn't understand it at the time, and I didn't realize it until after, way after the marriage, that he wanted me to be his rock. He wanted me to be his mother, honestly, like, because that's what his mother was his rock, like, and as well as his dad's rock, because the way he grew up, his dad was in the Navy, but they didn't want to travel with the kids. So they lived where they lived his entire life so that they would have a stable one place life with his mother. And his dad was in the Navy, traveling, and would come home 2 weeks a year. So she, the mother, was also his dad's rock. She was there when he was home, you know what I mean? Like, she was a caretaker for the family. And there was probably a lot of psychological issues with the fact that that happened, because if he only saw his dad 2 weeks at a time, or 2 weeks out of the entire year, I can imagine the hurt that he had as a child, and I can see why he would be possessive and jealous. I'm not giving him an excuse, just understanding where he comes from is all I'm doing. Because that's not an excuse. He can figure his shit out and do what he needs to do, but he chose not to, and he chose to ignore it. I'll get into that later. But whatever the case is, so because of his need for me to be his rock, to be the housewife, to be he also wanted him to be the only thing I needed. So basically, again, possessive, right? So I was all of a sudden this object that he needed me to be. And I didn't realize this. Again, I slowly got into this isolated position. I lost all my guy friends at the beginning when we were engaged, which I was willingly doing because he was uncomfortable with it. So I was like, you know what? I have my girlfriends. It's whatever. I got along with guys so much easier, so that I didn't like that, but if that's what made him comfortable, I made it happen. So I had strict relationships with all my guys that surrounded me as coworkers and nothing else. So I had my girlfriends. He deployed. He comes back 6 months later, and my girlfriends was all I had. I had 2 girlfriends. And one of them was married to somebody who deployed with my ex-husband. And the other girl, the second girl, she was dating a guy that deployed with our husbands. And so we hung out, it was easy because we were all going through the same things, like only talking to our boyfriend slash husbands whenever they called, and which was more often than I thought it was going to be. So I was grateful for that. But we got to talk about it amongst the two friends, the three of us. So it was a definitely a bonding experience between girlfriends who are going through the same thing, deployed husbands and deployed boyfriends. So anyway, he comes back, and I'm texting one of my friends. I can't remember who started the text. Maybe it was me. And I texted her. I was like, "How's having your husband back?" And she answered how wonderful it was. And we already had half a day with our husbands before we texted each other. It was like, no, it was a full day actually, because the day before they had come back, and it was like in the middle of the day, and then it was like afternoon the next day. So we had at least 24 hours with them before we were texting. And my ex-husband asked me who I was texting. I was like, I'm texting my friend, and he was like, well, I'm home now, so you don't need to text them anymore. I'm like, what? I didn't understand what that meant. Like, I just brushed it off because I didn't get it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna act like you didn't say that, Anyway, yeah, so that happened. And then after that, we like, my friends would call or text me and be like, Kat, let's go out. And I'll tell my ex-husband about it, and I'm like, hey, so-and-so wants to go out. And he'd be like, well, I really wanted to just cuddle on the couch and watch TV and, watch a show or whatever and spend some time with you. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so I'll tell that to my friends. And that, I didn't realize how much that happened. I didn't really have that much time outside unless we were hanging out with our friends at their house. We didn't go anywhere. Like, I didn't go to a club, which I went all the time with my friends. I didn't go to a bar, which occasionally happened as well. I didn't go anywhere in those places unless we're going to a friend's house. That was the only time he okayed it, which was only a very small handful of times as well. It wasn't every time that he was like, okay, let's go. And so slowly, my friends stopped calling me because they knew I was gonna tell them that I can't, because my husband wants to stay home and cuddle on the couch with a movie, So yeah, that happened, and slowly got isolated, slowly lost my friends, and yeah, I finally realized that I was at some point living in misery because I had no more friends. And I kept writing him letters telling him how I felt so I wouldn't get interrupted. And he would say, oh, I didn't know how you felt, I'm so sorry. He'll say that, but the next thing I know, he's just repeating everything. I wrote him a total of 3 letters in the 2 years and 9 months that I was married to him. And after he reads the letter, it was the same reaction, like he's never heard it before. And finally, I was at the ends of my patience with him, and I told him, I can't do this anymore. We need counseling. We need marriage counseling before I make the decision. I'm on the verge of divorce. And so we did. But then 4 sessions later, my counselor said, okay, we know what the problem is. It's because you have no friends and you're angry about it, And we were like, okay, we need to do this, or not like do this in the sense of like, because she was saying we know what the problem is now, and it's up to you guys to get together and communicate and figure out what you want to do and what life's going to look like. And when we tried talking, it was like having that conversation all over again. And I realized I was the only one that cared about the relationship. And that's when I made my decision that we were getting a divorce, because I was getting sick and tired of being the only one dancing the tango. I was tangoing alone. And that's not how a relationship works. We all know this. My next example is friendships. I've had so many friendships that I had to let go. At the beginning, they were all great connections. And I might not all of them did I fall in love as friends right off the bat and be like, man, I love this girl. I want to get to know her more. I want to hang out. I want to do all this stuff. But eventually it does get there. Like I can think of one that it took me a while to get there. But most of the friends that I'm talking about, it was seconds. We connected so quickly. And something will change, whether it's a circumstance, a job, a friend that they would make that would change them. And somehow we go like, I can't pinpoint exactly how it starts happening, but I do know that I start getting pushed back, so to speak. Like they'll have this whole relationship with whether it's a new job or the new friend or whatever, and I start going into the back of the room in the grand scheme of things, where I'm no longer important, which is fine. However, my issue with a lot of this stuff is that I have done a lot for them at this point. And if the relationship ends in a sense, like it's fine, you know? Because I do believe in friendships that is only here for a season. But the problem is they will actually treat me horribly. Like I'll feel completely backstabbed. For example, there was one where we helped them a lot, and we needed help for the first time, and they had the most hurtful excuses not to help us. And then another friend, it was finding another friend. Like the first friend, it was like the career change had made them horrible people because they were making a lot more money, and all of a sudden we were no longer important to them, and basically money changed them. They let money change them. This next friend I was talking about, it was another friend that she had made, and that friend had like me and this girl had a pretty positive relationship. Like we would have like great ideas, and we would like try to like collaborate and stuff, which had never happened, but that's fine. The ideas were still there. I loved idea generating. Being a visionary is part of my thing, and it was hers as well. And then this girl comes in, and like this girl would say things to me in front of her, and clearly they've had this conversation before, because she'll say it out loud, and it's like, what the fuck? Like I can't even explain to you the situation, and what the fuck moment that was with what she said, because it wasn't even what she said to me, it was how she said it to me. Actually, it was what she said as well. It was a combination, which makes it worse. And you can tell it was the kind of thing that they talked about previously behind my back, and she's making it known. And my friend didn't stop her. She just lets it happen. And yeah, she stopped calling me. She stopped texting me. This girl is all of a sudden her like entire world. Again, I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is we had a certain relationship where everything was a positive thing. We're expressing positivity in our surroundings, and all of a sudden this girl's talking shit to me. And she let it happen. Like, I felt very hurt. And that has happened before that multiple times. But that day that I'm thinking about right now, that was the last straw, and I was done. I was done. So I have not messaged her through social media. I have not texted her. I have not called her. And I do plan on deleting her off my social media because I just, let's just say I feel like she has burnt that bridge. I am not big on burning bridges. Like, I will not necessarily keep the peace, just keep acquainted, because collaboration can still be amazing. It's just you're no longer friends, which is fine. And that's kind of how I saw her for a little bit, until every time I see her, she would let this girl say shit that pisses me off. And I'm like, I don't need to stand for this. You know what I mean? So anyway, as far as I'm concerned, she has burnt this bridge, and I'll watch it fall, and I'm disconnecting everything from her. So what I'm doing, it has nothing to do with revenge. It has nothing to do with punishment. It's boundaries. This is my boundary. I do not need to put up with that shit. I do not need to carry the shit that she's passing on, so to speak. I don't need to do any of that shit. I'm protecting me and my mental health, my emotional health, all of that. I still care, honestly, because she is an amazing person, but she also did that to herself. But back to my point, I'm the most important person. My mental health and emotional health is more important. So therefore, I'm letting her go. Letting that relationship go. Letting that false hope of who she was supposed to be and the false hope of maybe she'll come back around go. Letting it all go. Now, with all of that said, I did mention a little something. I said that I do believe that a lot of people who come into our lives are meant for just a season in our lives. I do believe that. And a lot of good did come out of all of these relationships. So I'm holding on to what it brought me, not what I hoped they should have become, and the hope that they might come back around. I'm letting that go and keeping what it gave me. So again, some people belong only for a season, but maybe fewer of these people we meet and still have in our lives are meant for to stay in our future. These few people belong in the past, and that is all there is to that. I think there's a huge difference between the two, and it's important to understand the difference. You know what I mean? Yeah. So those are only through 3 examples of what I had to go through in my past to let go of those relationships, to let go of the false hope I had for those relationships, and cut the ties and leave them in my past, as opposed to taking them forward with me into my future. Especially since I'm trying to start with a clean slate once I leave here. You know what I mean? I'm out. Like when I moved to Okinawa, I'm leaving all the stuff that I had. I'm only having my clothes and a few select items that I don't want to part with, which is very few. Like, my books, my 3 books that I published, and a couple of things from my dad, and some memorabilias from, you know, the military and stuff like that. Very few though. We only have, between me and Josh, we have 2 suitcases of things that we do not want to part with. But doing all of this, parting from all these things, making the decision to let go of these relationships that we had false hope on, it takes a lot of courage and resilience and positive hope to let go of these relationships. With that said, like my tagline, through courage comes bliss. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful day.